Hi, I'm Liz, and this is Love of Fibers. Welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, this is a knitting podcast where I share my love for knitting. Thank you so much for being here and supporting me and just kind of being part of my, my enthusiastic love for this craft. So today, let's talk about frame sweater. And this is the Rhinebeck sweater, which was a design made by Andrea, who she designs a Rhinebeck sweater pattern every year for Rhinebeck, which is New York Sheep and Wool Festival that happens every year in October up in Rhinebeck, New York. So as soon as I saw this design, I fell in love with it. I love all the like quilted kind of star motifs, and I knew I needed to make this pattern. And then on top of that, I was going to Rhinebeck. So I was like, this is the perfect sweater for me to make to go to Rhinebeck. So I kind of went in blindly and just kind of hoped for the best. And so I'm glad I did, and I did encounter, challenges along the way, but I pushed through, and I'm so happy with the end result. I love this sweater. I had so much fun wearing it all day at Rhinebeck. I love seeing everybody else's frame sweater. I was so happy to be part of the meetup and to meet Andrea and to take pictures and to be able to talk to her for a little bit and just kind of, be part of that community. It was so much fun. And so that was like a super highlight for me. So let me start with, the beginning of this project. I fell in love with this project as soon as I saw it. I knew I wanted to make it. I bought the yarn. I cast it on. I was very excited. And, doing the gauge was not fun. It was my first time doing a gauge in the round in Colorwork. So I did not enjoy that at all, but I did it. The other thing is that, after I cast it on, it's a bottom up sweater. So I've never done that either. So there's no like trying it on as you go. So you just have to trust the process and trust the pattern and the designer. The pattern is very well detailed, very well explained, and I was so grateful for that. You have to obviously, be very mindful of how you hold your yarn, of your tension, of catching your floats properly. There's a lot of little things, that you want to be very mindful of. So this is a project that requires a lot of attention, and you need to have time to sit and make sure you're doing it correctly, and that you're not missing anything, and that you go line by line. So because any little mistake you make, obviously you have a motif, you're going to notice. The other thing is that all of that was fine. I was doing it. It was great. And then when I had to split for yoke, that's when it wasn't fun at all. So when you split, you have to now work in the flat, right? So you're constantly turning your work, to do one knitted row and then a purl row. And so you're constantly flipping back and forth. Now, you have to be mindful of your floats, of your tension, of carrying both yarns, also of, constantly moving your work, to knit in the back and in the front. And so all of these things, just add to the fact that knitting in the flat colorwork isn't fun at all. Then you have to catch your floats on the purl side, so that's a different technique. And so you have to be mindful of all these things. Then you split for yoke. And now you have to also put part of your stitches, like let's suppose your back stitches on hold, right, on a cord, because you're only working on one piece. So let's suppose you're working on the front of the fabric. You're only going to be working on this. You have your back stitches on hold, and you're mindful of your tension of both colors, of knitting back and forth, front and back, and also be mindful of the other stitches. Then you're going to now reverse it when you're done with that and do the same for the back. And then when you finish the back, right? And remember, the front are still on hold now because you're working the back. And then when you finish the back, the yarn that you're working with, to do the ribbing, the shoulder, on one side, you leave that ball of yarn attached. And then you go to the other side and you introduce another ball of yarn and you work, the rest of the ribbing. And then, so you have like so many moving parts. You have an extra skein, you're carrying an extra skein that you're not using. You have live stitches on hold. You have, working in the flat. Like there's so many things going on, tension, floats that you're trying to catch. There's so many things. it really pushes you. And at one point I was like mentally exhausted, and I had never felt that with knitting. And I actually encountered that with this project where I felt like so tired and exhausted mentally of trying to like focus on so many things. And then knitting in the flat added to that, that I had to actually put the project away and step away from it for about a week to just kind of like take a break and reset, because I wasn't working on anything else. Because when the knit along started, I was away in Europe. So when I got back home, it had already like been going for 2 weeks, and I still needed to get yarn, decide colors. So I ended up starting a little bit later. I don't know, like maybe, I don't know, like September or something, or end of August, I'm not sure. But anyway, and so then now I didn't have like a lot of time. I had maybe like 6 weeks to get this done, block it and have it ready for Rhinebeck. So I just had like, and plus, you have your life and you have all these things going on. So all my other projects were set to the side, and I only focused on this garment. And I got to the point where I was so exhausted, and I was like, I need to walk away. And so I walked away from it. I started knitting on like, I think my cumulus, which is all in the round. I was working on the body, and then a week later kind of went back to the sweater. And at that point I was like, refreshed. I was clear, my mind was clear. I had changed my mindset. I was like, okay, I love the sweater. I love the pattern. I'm going to Rhinebeck. I need to finish it. I need to push through. And, I just kind of encouraged myself to kind of like see it in a different way. And I just pushed through and I got it done. And then once I started like looking at it that way, I kind of started enjoying that end process, which was, building the yoke and the flat and the shoulders. And so then after I finished, when I did the ribbing and I came to do the seam, I love that 3 needle bind off. Like I had never done that technique, and I loved it. I love the finishing that it does. And I had so much fun doing that. It was so easy. And so after that, I then picked up my sleeves and then did, the collar, and I enjoyed doing everything else. I love making this sweater. And it's so funny because at the end, when I was finished, I was like, oh my God, I love it so much. I would totally like do this again, because I saw the result and I loved it. But that piece, just that little piece of knitting in the flat and having to be mindful of so many moving parts. Like I said, you had all these ends, you had an extra skein, you had tension, you had floats, color work, knitting in the flat. So it was just a lot. And so that part I didn't care for. And I wish this was like, I don't know, like a top down sweater maybe, or maybe steeked. Maybe if you could steek this sweater, it would be easier. I think some people did that, and I think that was so smart. And so, because they didn't have to do the knitting in the flat. And so I think like if in the future I would ever do this, I think I would try that method to just see, since I already done one, how the pattern calls for. So that's like the only piece that I remember being so overwhelmed and being so challenged, where I actually like needed a break from it. But everything else was fine, and I was happy and I loved it. And like I said, the end result I love. But it was definitely, a challenging experience. And this is not a pattern for a beginner knitter at all. I wouldn't recommend this for a beginner knitter. I would recommend this for intermediate and higher. Also, if you've never done color work, I wouldn't recommend this as your first color work project. Pick something easier. If you like the motif, maybe do the frame your face cowl, which is all in the round. It's a tube, and I think there you can practice the color work and get something beautiful with this motif. That would be my recommendation. It's a beautiful cowl. You will love it. And then, give yourself some time, work on other projects, and then tackle this, because this is a monster of a pattern. And I am so glad that I kind of went in, not knowing that this was the kind of challenge and the kind of work that it required, because I think that maybe if I would have known, I would have hesitated to do it. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't know, because I pushed through and I did it, and I learned so much, and I upped my skills. So I'm very grateful for that. But like I said, this was a monster of a project. I totally forgot to take measurements before blocking, but I do have measurements after blocking, and I will give you those. I will look at my notes because I kind of wrote everything down. And, and again, I will write all this in my project page, and you'll have everything there. But just to kind of give you an idea, again, the pattern calls for worsted weight superwash. I did 100% wool worsted weight. I use 3 needles instead of 2. It calls for a 3.5 and a 4.5 for the body. I did 3.5 on the ribbing, 4.5 on the body, 5 on the sleeves because I wanted the sleeves to be nice and loose. Okay, so after blocking, I got 45 inches for my circumference, which was perfect. And I got from my underarm to my waist, to the bottom hem, I got 12 inches. And then I got on my sleeve 14.5 inches. And on my upper sleeve, I had my circumference 15 inches. So like really nice measurements all around. I love how it fits. I'm very comfortable. And I didn't have to, work after blocking, I didn't have to like stretch or work my sweater or like be aggressive with my blocking. I just kind of blocked it nice, and these are the measurements I got. So I was really happy. As far as the yardage that I used, like the grams, I used for my brown color, which is the ribbing, I used 94 grams out of 200 that I had, because I had two balls of the brown. For the rust, I used 165 grams. And for the cream, I used 170 grams. So like I said, I have a lot of yarn left because I bought extra. And let's see what else here. I think that's it. I told you the mods that I made, which was my hem 2 inches, and then that I actually switched the needle for my sleeves. But everything else was to pattern. And like I said, I couldn't be happier with this sweater. I love it. I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of it over now the winter. It's really cozy. It's just gorgeous. And I love the colors. I'm so glad that I did it, and I love it. And like I said, I had so much fun at Rhinebeck showing off this sweater and wearing it all day, and being surrounded by so many frame sweaters was beautiful. Receiving so many compliments, and also myself giving so many compliments out to other makers that made the frame. It was fantastic. I love the experience of when someone, knits, when there's one pattern and like a big community knits it, and we're all wearing the same thing. I think this was like such a cool concept. And I know Andrea does it every year. And for me, that was such a highlight. I think I'm going to be doing her Rhinebeck sweater every year because it was so much fun. And just, Marlene made this from Marlene Knits. So that was cool because her and I kind of talked about it, and then we met up and we took pictures, and we both had the frame sweater. Hers was gorgeous. She used her hand spun yarn for her color changing. It turned out beautiful. And yeah, so it was just like a really nice experience. And like I said, this is a gorgeous sweater. And I just wanted to share, all about this frame sweater, the yarns that I use, and the challenges that I kind of encountered along the way, because I felt that it needed its own moment. Instead of just kind of adding it to another podcast, I felt like it needed its own moment because it was so much work and so challenging at certain parts. And so I wanted to share that in case anybody was interested, but definitely worth it and beautiful. And I don't want to discourage anyone. If there's a beginner knitter out there that is as risky and as unafraid as I am, or as insane as I am, that, I just kind of go for it. If you're that kind of person, you go for it, and you know that you can handle it, that you can push through, even when it becomes very difficult. Yourself that you can kind of take some time, step away, and go back to it with a different outlook and a different mindset, then definitely go for it. But you won't regret it, because it's a really gorgeous sweater. And I will put like some little videos and pictures for you guys so you can kind of see the entire sweater. And I also share the beautiful picture that I did with Andrea at Rhinebeck so you guys can see it. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little rant about my frame sweater. And, you know, I hope these tips are helpful for you if you're thinking about making it. And if you made it and you were at Rhinebeck, you know, leave in the comments below what your thoughts about Rhinebeck was, you know, about the meetup. Did you enjoy it? Did you also feel like so happy to be in that sea of frame sweaters? Or did you, you know, did you make it? And did you, what was your experience knitting this up? Did you, I'm assuming I wasn't the only one feeling, you know, overwhelmed at the part where we split for yoke and then we had all those moving parts and knitting in the flat. I would love to know if someone else out there experienced the same thing as I did, because I wouldn't know if it was because I'm a new knitter to Colorwork, or is it because it was a lot at that, you know, during that part. I know that I talked to other friends that were making it, and they actually felt exactly the same way when it came to that piece, and they actually had to step away and just cast on new projects because they needed a break. So I just kind of want to get, you know, other people's opinions and see how you felt about that particular part, and just in general about making the frame sweater. And again, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from knitting it. I'm just being honest and sharing what you're, you know, what you will encounter and what to expect if you go into this project, so that way you're ready and you know exactly, you know, what you're getting into, which I didn't have, because we all kind of like, whoever made it during the knit along, we were all new, nobody had made it, so we're all kind of like, you know, didn't know what to expect. But it was really fun to be part of the knit along and to see everybody else, you know, making their frame, and then obviously to get to the event and see everyone was super cool. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here, for watching. Again, if you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. I would love your support. And thank you again for everything that you do, for watching, for liking, for, you know, sharing, for the comments. I love your comments. I try to respond to everyone. And also feel free to follow me on, you know, Instagram. I post more current updates of what I'm working, kind of behind the scenes. And also on Ravelry, you know, I always try to keep my projects as updated as possible. With this project, I will have all that information for you. And I think that's it for me. But thank you so much, guys. Happy knitting. Bye.